Welcome to Let Me Know How It Is, a pop culture podcast about animation, TV, movies, comics, and more. This is part 3 of our review of the first season of Amazon's new animated series, Batman Caped Crusader. I'm Zach Slater.
I'm Frank Melman.
And I'm Clifton.
All right, we already reviewed the first 5 episodes in parts 1 and 2, so check those out if you missed it. And this is also going to be your spoiler warning, because we are going to spoil everything about all of these episodes. Who lives and dies, Easter eggs, plot twists, all of it. So if you don't care about that sort of thing, keep on listening. But if you haven't watched, go check it out and come on back and we'll be right here waiting for you. So, all right, let's go. Let's get started with episode 6, Night Ride, written by Mark Bernardin and directed by Christopher Berkeley. Okay, so we fade up on West Side's Charities van. There's a driver and a partner inside. The partner says she remembers when these factories were open around the clock, and her dad used to work at that one over there making paper clips. And then a fire hit and it was all gone. And then she remarks, if we had a government worth a damn, we'd rebuild instead of getting just the slums. And then they see a glowing blue figure on a horse riding straight at them. The van swerves to miss. And then the rider draws a musket and fires into the engine. The van crashes and flips over. The lady gets out and the rider tries to help, saying that the road is no place for a lady and she should run along home. And he rides off laughing, and the loot in the van is all stolen. And then we roll the open. So I'll toss to you guys here first. What do you think? It's a short teaser.
Yeah.
It's a ghost.
It's a ghost highwayman. As opposed to a riverboat gambler ghost, as he usually is portrayed.
Yes.
No, I liked it. I liked the whole, like the stand and deliver. I was kind of like, I kind of knew what that phrase meant, but I wasn't certain, so I looked it up. Does anyone know what that phrase means? Stand and deliver when he says it?
Mm-mm.
No.
Basically, it's reach for the sky or like stick 'em up. That's basically what it means. Is basically directing someone to get up and give you money.
Okay.
In a robbery type situation, so that's why he says it. That's why it's like 18th century stand and deliver.
I was gonna say like 18th.
Yeah, which I thought was I thought was fun. I thought based on the time frame it makes sense to go back further than to be like, usually he's like I said, he's some kind of degenerate gambler who gets murdered for not paying up or something. Good old Gentleman Jim Craddock, or the Gentleman Ghost, as he's usually known. But yeah, it was a cool intro. I thought it was fine. I did think it was a nice, not a nice thing, but just the fact that they acknowledge the fact that either Gotham is in a bad state or Gotham is dealing with the aftermath of the Depression.
Yeah,
just a nod to that's where we are, time wise.
Yeah, that's what I dig too.
Yeah, just a little bit of like, yep, things used to be better, but the government's let us down. So what'd you think of the design?
I like the design. He normally doesn't have a head, right? Like he's normally just a suit, like a floating suit and a top hat.
Right, and then a monocle. Usually he has
the usually a floating monocle and a top hat.
Yep.
So giving him a head was a choice.
Yeah, it was. Definitely.
Well, and he's usually like floating hands too, because I usually see like he has nothing in between the shirt cuff, but he wears gloves.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like he's just got it kind of like floating, like disconnected hands,
like an
and stuff. But he's usually like a completely invisible entity, beneath like a white tie,
right?
Like suit with tails.
Yeah, basically an animated suit that's got nobody in it. Usually the look. I didn't mind it. I thought it was again. I enjoyed the design. I thought it was pretty cool.
No, I dig the design too. It is a departure, but I think it works for the take, which we'll get into in a bit.
Right.
So all right. So we fade up on Bruce. He's reading the paper headline: Gentleman Ghost grabs charity loot.
Right.
Lucius Fox is there, telling Bruce about changes he's made to his financial portfolio. He asks what he makes of these ghost robberies, and Bruce says, it's obviously a man in a costume. Why would a ghost need money?
Right.
Lucius then asks Pennyworth if he thinks ghosts are haunting Gotham City. And Alfred says, basically in this city, nothing surprises him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Lucius asks Alfred about his uncle, and Alfred says that his uncle Nigel thought the spirit of his late wife was wandering around. And Bruce says he doesn't know what's stranger, the fact that Alfred believes in ghosts or that he and Lucius are so chummy. And Lucius says that he was raised to treat the staff like people, and Bruce might want to give it a try. It's a good bit. I like that bit.
Yeah, me too.
So outside, Lucius brings up a property for Wayne Gardens project that Bruce ultimately declined to purchase. Lucius says he bought it and he plans to build some single-family units and low-income housing, a school, park. He's got big plans for it. Bruce congratulates him. Lucius offers to cut him in, saying that, Bruce has more than enough money in that discretionary fund that he won't let Lucius near. But Bruce says that's his petty cash fund. And then Lucius says he probably doesn't want to know what he uses that cash on. And Bruce says, no, you really don't want to know. Mm-hmm. So we go to the courthouse next, where Dent is reading from the newspaper that he's just doing whatever mommy and daddy taught him to do and buy whatever he wants. And now he wants to buy the election too. And he says that they'll just print anything Mayor Jessup wants to say now. His associate Gorman was supposed to get in front of this. And he says he tried, but Jessup has the papers in his pocket, and they're happy to run photos of him with his rich friends. Dent notes 2 unions have already withdrawn their endorsements, and that's just today. Gorman says that they have been losing some support from the working class citizens, and they should do some kind of press event to show that he's a man of the people. So Harvey agrees and tells Gorman to set it up. Dent goes to his car. Thorne is in the car. He says he told Dent's driver to take a walk around the block. Thorne says Dent is slipping in the polls, and he's here to offer us some help. Dent says he thought he was backing Mayor Jessup. Thorne remarks sometimes he likes to bet on red and black. That way, no matter what, he wins. Dent says this is exactly why he was running to save the city from this kind of corruption. Thorne says Dent has morals, but he can't save anyone if he can't win. He says he knows where to find him if he wants to get back in the game. All right. Dent's still smarmy.
And getting smarmier.
Yes.
Yes. This is where, in my opinion, the smarm is kind of hurting him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because I think we needed to see possibly an instance of genuine good he's been doing. Mm-hmm. Right? And I think his association with Bruce isn't quite enough to bias that, I think. Especially this iteration of Bruce, which is actually like slightly unlikable also, I would say. So I don't know that that's doing the lift that they think it is, but I wanted to know what you guys thought.
I mean, he seems a little apprehensive about getting into bed with Thorne. There's a little bit of a push of like, no. But Thorne mentions compromise and the line about not being able to save anyone if you don't win. Oh, and the other thing about this thing he says is most men have morality on a sliding scale, which I thought was an interesting thing to say to Harvey, as supposed to be someone who's normally, the white knight or the basically the guy that's supposed to keep, Gotham in line. Yeah, I thought it was, it was kind of like, yeah, he's somewhat, but I agree with you. There's not much, based on everything else we've seen, there isn't a whole lot to keep him from being sort of unlikable or, on the wrong side of things.
Right. And then going back to Lucius, this is where I think Lucius is kind of resembling the classic take now. We saw him first introduced as like Bruce's lawyer in the Catwoman episode.
Right.
But now this is him where like he was initially like brought on board as somebody who like took care of Bruce's like financials. Right. He was sort of like an investment guru. Like one of the best money people on the planet traditionally before, Batman Begins reinvented him as the gadget guy.
Q.
Great take. Also but yeah, so this is kind of like classic Lucius,
Yeah, I did have to recalibrate after the earlier episodes. We're like, what is he, a lawyer now? Like he's like he's just a lawyer, but now I was like, is he like his financial planner? But now he's talking about like doing deals on his own.
Yeah.
I was like, he's a lawyer plus he does the money. I mean, I guess it's kind of like entertainment lawyers, sort of. I don't know. But I'll have to recalibrate to see what he actually is. He seems to kind of be whatever
they need him to be
they need him to be at the moment, out of all the iterations he's been, plus some.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely the money is where I'm more used to him dealing.
In truth, that's also kind of the way he works in the books a little bit too. I think
he's always probably how he ended up as Q in the movies.
Yeah, he's always kind of like the ace up the sleeve.
Yeah.
No, I love Lucius.
But no, I like the bit with him and him and Alfred doing the patches.
Right.
And it almost comes off as Bruce is a little jealous.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, granted, the most like so far we've seen that Bruce has got it, like, needs Alfred, but at the same time kind of keeps him in an arm's length, and then is kind of dickish to him when he can be. But yeah, he seemed kind of annoyed. Like, it was more of a, oh, you guys have an inside joke that I don't know about?
Right. How
That's
dare
not
you?
cool. Yeah, right. It's not cool.
Yeah.
You guys talk when I'm not around? What's going on? So I like that bit. I thought that was a fun bit.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't pass up an opportunity to be a dick to Alfred. That's
no, unfortunately, no.
All right, so in the Batcave, Batman says something's odd. The truck last night was carrying collections from a charity. He says there were 5 other armored trucks in the city, all of them with more money. So why the charity truck over the others? And Alfred suggests that the thief opted for less risk for a lesser reward. Batman proposes that maybe he needs to focus less on what's stolen and more on who it's being stolen from. So we cut to the subway, in a subway train. This is Dent's press event. So he's on the train. He's trying to look like one of the people. The train commuters are the beating heart of the city, he's saying, and when he's elected, he'll see to it that the subways are cheaper and cleaner and safer. And then we see the gentleman ghost is riding outside on the tracks beside the train. He steers towards the train and then materializes in the car.
Mm-hmm.
The ghost then sticks up the train commuters. Harvey stands, trying to look like the hero. He offers all the money he has in exchange for not hurting any of the people. Ghost says, oh no, he would never dream of taking anything from a man of Dent's station, but he'll take everything from the commoners.
Right.
And then the ghost disappears from the train and rides off. So this was the moment that like materializing in the train was like, oh, okay. Like, these are good parlor tricks.
Well, I was going to ask you, that was the thing. I was like, do we have that moment of like, oh, it is a Scooby-Doo episode where he's not really...
Like if it were a Scooby-Doo episode, it would be like a transparent film, like running alongside the train on a cable with a projector, like the Pepper's ghost.
Right. Right. Or someone managed to put a projector in somehow in the train car or something.
Right, yeah. Or both.
Or both. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was like, well, maybe it's not a, maybe Bruce is going to run into something that's a little more outside of his norm.
Right.
But yeah, I like that. I thought that was cool.
It was a very Scooby-Doo chase, though.
It was
running on the train tracks.
Right. I mean, Harvey should get some credit. He does stand up to the gentleman ghost, but at the same time,
yes,
it doesn't go well for him.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't exactly turn out well or become a thing that he can point to be like, look, see what I did.
Right.
No, I agree. We'll get more into that, but I do want to say though. And this is where I'll contradict my last point about Dent, where I said, like, I kind of think before he needs, like, some genuine moment of trying to do good for people. Right. Like, well, we get it here, but what I like is that with his history and all the past episodes, that this moment, like, we're uncertain if this is Dent trying to keep the people safe, or if he's doing it purely for optics also.
Right. True.
Right. Like that's what I like. I like that. I don't know what he's doing truly in that scene. And so that's what I will admit, that having him be so smarmy for 5 episodes up until that point does get that.
Right.
And he doesn't try to dissuade our gentleman ghost.
Right.
The guy's like, oh, I won't steal from you. It's like, oh, okay, that's fine.
Right.
Then.
Right. Fine. Right. Yeah, it's true.
I guess.
Yeah.
From a man of your station. That's a great line.
It is.
Good line. Yeah. All right. So Batman catches up with Gentleman Ghost in the Batmobile. We have a chase through the streets.
Right.
Batman sees a crest on the saddlebags on the horse, and he chases the ghost into an alley, but then the ghost disappears through the wall, leaving only like glowing blue singed currency behind.
Yep. Batman
gets out and it touches the wall to see if it's tricked in some way, but it looks like nothing's fishy. So again, I say here, some good parlor tricks.
Yeah.
So did that add anything to you now at this point where you're going like, okay, is this a guy? Is this a goat? Like where were you guys falling at this point?
In Scooby-Doo mindset trapdoor.
Okay. Yep. Me too.
Again, it could have been they just cut the projector and then there was a flashbang or some kind of confetti machine that spit stuff out. Yeah, for sure. I could see that.
Batman should have said jinkies while picking up the singed money.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Okay, good. No, I was the same way. I still thought it was a guy.
Right.
I'm still like, no, this is a dude in a costume. I'm with Batman all the way on this
one. Right.
No, I will just say that chase scene just needed some like 70s music, and it would have been on like some 70s folk rock. Yeah.
Or a Scooby-Doo door gag
like
scene.
going in and out of like alley doors.
Yeah. All right, so we're back in the Batcave, and Batman's examining the vestiges of the burnt bills. So there was something physical, tangible left behind. So Alfred suggests that maybe he consider the possibility that the ghost is real. Mm-hmm. Batman says, the world is big enough for us. No ghosts need apply. Alfred remarks that's one of his favorite authors as well. But when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. Batman asks what remains here is the ghost only targets the underprivileged, and he's obsessed with the 18th century, and he needs answers about the crest which he drew from memory. Which is a cool bit. I like that. I like that you saw that he literally just has like a pencil drawing of the crest that he did. I like this is where the 40 setting is kind of cool, right?
It's kind of indie-ish, right?
Yeah. There's no camera on the Batmobile that he could snap a picture of it and zoom in on it later, and I dig that. All right, Lucius pulls up to Heritage Hill, an estate that's been has seen better days. Russell Craddock welcomes him. Lucius asks about the cemetery nearby. Craddock says that the plot has been in the family since they were pilgrims. And he hopes Lucius can preserve it. So this is the house or the land that Lucius was talking about purchasing at the top of the episode. Craddock says he hates to have to sell it, but because of taxes, he has to get rid of the estate. He takes Lucius in to show him around, and we see the seal from Ghost's saddlebag is molded over the entry to the estate. So we cut to then Bruce in the library doing research on family crests. Wilma, the librarian, recognizes not so young Bruce Wayne at this point.
Right.
She remembers him coming in with his mother, and he was always interested in knights and heroes. He presents her with the drawing of the crest and says he's trying to see who this coat of arms belongs to, and it's not in any of the books. And she remarks, it wouldn't be, that's the Craddocks. One of Gotham's founding families, but the name was struck from the official history because of James Craddock's actions during the Revolution. And she gets into his backstory. Gentleman Jim Craddock was a wealthy aristocrat and loyalist. He was also a gambler and almost lost the family's entire estate on Heritage Hill. Since he was born of nobility, he thought wealth was his right and blamed democracy for his misfortunes. He fell and became a highwayman. The opposite of Robin Hood, he robbed from the poor to give to himself. He was caught and hanged in the town's gallows. And then Bruce thanks Wilma. She remarks that she's sorry to what happened to his family. Bruce calls from the car phone for Lucius. He isn't in. He's finalizing the deal to buy Heritage Hill. And Bruce tells Alfred to get there fast, and he suits up in his bat gear. I love the pre-internet detective work here.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I love that this is a Batman that can't just sit and has the internet at his disposal in the supercomputer.
Right.
He's got to actually go to a library and look stuff up, and other people have information that he needs.
Yeah, at a moment of is this going to be a microfiche? Is he going to be going to have to be sitting there scrolling through stuff? Oh, let me grab another box.
Yeah.
Trying to get through it all. Yep, I like that too. I thought that was a fine bit. I did like I was going to say I like the animation in the basically when they showed us the flashback. I thought that was nice. I thought that was pretty well done. Yeah,
kind of in the stills.
Yeah, kind of like they did in that episode of what's the one from with the Viking Prince and Justice League Unlimited.
Yeah.
It's similar, right? It's not as Kuberty, obviously.
To Another Shore from Justice League Unlimited. Yeah.
Thank you. Kind of similar bit, but I think this was good too. The one thing I did notice was when he was flipping through the book, he mentioned there was a page that had Moldoff.
Okay,
I thought it was Shelley Moldoff who created, who was the one who was credited with creating Green Lantern.
Okay,
like Alan Scott, Green Lantern. And I looked it up today to see if I could find out why he would be mentioned for the Gentleman Ghost. I thought maybe he had something to do with that, but I couldn't seem to find anything. Because the persons that created Gentleman Ghost was Kubert and Robert Kanigher, and he was a Hawkman villain, right?
Okay.
But in the last, 10 to 15 years, they put him more and more with Batman, which is fine. I like it because he was also in Brave and the Bold a bunch.
Yeah.
And he's also he's in Justice League Unlimited. When they expand that.
He makes one appearance in Justice League Unlimited at least. He may be on the Legion of Doom in the Darth Vader helmet when they come out. That I can't remember. He may be in that group shot, but he is in. I think it's in the open of Ancient History, which is a Hawkman, Green Lantern, Hawkgirl heavy episode. One of the best ones. A really good one.
But the character's been around since 1947, so
okay.
I was trying to find why Moldoff as opposed to Kanigher or Kubert was mentioned in that page, but I couldn't seem to find it. So if someone knows, let us know because I couldn't.
Moldoff did a lot of work on Batman though, correct?
I think so, maybe. Okay, possibly, but. Yeah, again, like I said, I mean, we get like those little, moments of like things named for creators, like Goodwin Airport and that kind of stuff that gets mentioned every now and then. But like those things. But I thought for this book, I thought it was going to be a nod about Gentleman Ghost and maybe just been Batman stuff.
Okay.
Oh, and then my other question was, with mention of old families of Gotham, do you think we're talking Court of Owls? Do you think we'll
I'd be surprised if we're not.
Yeah, I would be too.
I really would be.
Because that was my thought, was maybe that's where they're going to at least seed for a bit, was the Court of Owls, but we didn't really get anything more with it, so maybe it's just there's, the founders of Gotham. We'll get back to it.
And I was looking, I have my thoughts about Scott Snyder's Batman run, but one piece that I do like a lot, this is predates New 52, is a miniseries he called Gates of Gotham. And it deals a lot with sort of like Gotham's founding fathers kind of thing and everything. And so what he introduces in there is the idea that the Waynes, the Elliots, which is like Hush's family, right? And then the Cobblepots were also like three of like the really, really important families in Gotham, like going back, into like Bruce's great grandfather and stuff like that. And the Canes also, the Kane family. Was part of that too. So all that to say, so I was looking hard for like any other reference to those guys too, which I didn't find anything. Yeah. But that I was curious to see if that was going to pop up. And then Frank, I was thinking Court of Owls too, because I mean, how do you not hit that now? So I want to keep going, but really quick, I want to ask about Gentleman's Ghost backstory here. Like how much of it is adjusted? Do you know?
As far as I know, it's fairly adjusted because, like I said, the character's been around from 47. I still think he was, if I remember correctly, it's been a while, but he was a guy that was in England and he used the name Gentleman Jim. For when it comes to the States, he gets murdered or dies because of a debt of some sort. I mean, as far as I know, that's it. I don't really know anything more. As far as I know, all the Revolutionary War stuff was added. Like I don't think that's stuff that's been done before. I don't ever recall him being a loyalist to the crown or anything. I never remember that. So
it's nice though. I like those additions.
It works.
I'm not saying it needs to stick, but I mean for this iteration, I think it's pretty great.
Yeah,
actually, I like that bit a lot. I like that flashback bit a lot. So,
and reverse Robin Hood is definitely a heel move.
Yeah,
it's like an ultimate heel move. Just robbing from poor people and only poor people.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, and this is where I think the partner speaking up about the factories and stuff like that at the very, very top in the teaser, just sort of subtly hitting at Depression era stuff. I think if they wanted to hit that even a little harder, they could have to make it sting even more. Like he's robbing people who don't have anything, like at their lowest point too.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So yeah, not a nice guy.
No,
this gentleman. This name's ironic.
Yes. Right.
So we're at Heritage Hill. It's beginning to storm outside. Lucius and Russell are signing the sale papers. Fox asks about the portrait of Jim. Russell says it's one of his great uncles. He had the house built on land granted to him by the King of England, but he became some kind of criminal or traitor, and he ruined the family name.
Yeah. We don't really talk about it much.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So then ghostly apparitions begin to appear. Gentleman Ghost appears through the floor and calls Russell an ungrateful wretch.
Yep.
He betrayed everything the family stood for. Heritage Hill is the family legacy, and he's selling it to Lucius, calling him rabble.
Yeah.
And then Fox is ready to throw down, which I love.
Oh, yeah.
The ghost uses some levitation powers and says Fox will die first. And then this is where Batman enters, calling the ghost James Craddock. He says, "You know me." And Batman remarks he knows who he's pretending to be.
Mm-hmm.
Batman fights him.
Right.
Fox and Russell exit. And then there's a joke where Fox says he's tearing this house down first thing, and Russell says, "Please do."
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, me too. The ghost is able to hit Batman, but he's also able to avoid hits by phasing through walls and the floor and stuff. Batman connects with Ghost's face, but his hand goes through his face and gets frozen.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, his hand starts to freeze. The ghost says he fights like a well-bred man, so he'll leave, but he won't be so forgiving if they cross paths again. He disappears, leaving Batman with his frozen hand. Yes, again, a lot of trapdoors.
Yeah. If this were a Scooby episode, it would have all been about breaking up this real estate deal. That's what it would have all been about.
Right. Yeah.
Was preventing the housing development from being built.
Right. Yes. Well, again, it's one of those things where I think, like you said, I know you're pretending to be. Even Batman at that point is still skeptical about whether or not this is something supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which I thought was fun because it's like, oh no, I know what you're trying to do. I know it, but then he quickly realizes, oh no, this is something I don't normally deal with, which I thought was interesting. Because sometimes when we're dealing with Bruce walking the earth and learning what he needs to learn, they play the game of, well, he's encountered it, but it's not like he's fully gone up against something by himself, or he knows of it, or he's dabbled, but nothing quite like this, where it's like, oh no, you're fighting a ghost. Like a literal supernatural being is what you're going to have to go up against.
I like that though. I like that he's still a skeptic at this point, because Batman and Indiana Jones have kind of a similar thing where like they're both like diehard skeptics, but they're also people that have seen everything.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So, but I like that they don't just jump to like this is something that I can't explain. I think that I like that he still thinks that there's some explanation to what he's seeing. But I like that they're also sort of like each instance of the ghost arriving, it kind of levels up every time. We're like, now, they're going like full carry with things where he's just like, Yeah,
all the stuff levitating and everything.
Yeah.
No, I also like the bit where he comes out of the painting and the cracks, and it was very much coming out of hell, or almost like Sam Raimi Drag Me to Hell bit coming up out of the earth. I thought that was really cool. But yeah, like I said, I just thought the Lucius bit with his
descendant.
His descendant. Thank you. Yeah, I thought that bit was good too.
Yeah. Which telling also too that like he's there. So who was the red herring for this? Like, okay, well it's not him. Russell's there.
Right.
Russell's in the scene, and Clifton, I know you're joking, but but like that Scooby-Doo stuff like is there. That's the thing that they're teasing at. Like, no. Right. Like it's about like somebody wants to break up that business deal.
Yeah.
No, it's pretty solid. I'm digging it. Sounds like you guys are too.
Yeah.
I love Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
All right. So we go to the courthouse. The press is asking Dent questions as he leaves about whether or not he actually just stood there as Gotham citizens were being robbed.
Right.
He gets into his car and says he needs to fire Gorman.
Which again is unfair, because what is he supposed to do?
Right.
Maybe more than just say, hey, okay, don't rob me, but rob them.
Right.
But
he didn't exactly just stand there any more than anybody else did.
Precisely. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's not like it was someone else jumped to it and then Harvey's like, go ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're unfair to him. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's all Jessup's fault. He's got the papers are in his pocket.
Right.
All right, so we're back at the Batcave. Alfred is filling a bowl with hot water to thaw Batman's hand. Bruce remarks that it can't be over 108 degrees or it'll cause nerve damage. And what I love is Alfred is is he's tended to so many wounds that he knows what he's doing already. Like this early, he's like, I know.
Right.
Batman now, though, is beginning to entertain the possibility that the ghost is a real ghost.
Right.
And now he asks, if that's true, how can he stop him? And Alfred has someone that he might be able to speak to. So we cut to Linton's bookstore. Batman meets Linton Midnight. He tells Batman he knows he's tracking the gentleman ghost, but he doesn't know how to catch one. Batman says, before today, he didn't even believe they were real. A ghost stealing money, what could he need it for? Midnight says ghosts are all echoes of their former selves, so they're doomed to repeat their actions in death that they performed in life. Midnight gives Batman a book that contains the rite of passage from this world to the next. He'll need two things: the original deed to Heritage Hill. He, being the ghost, believes he still has a claim to that in Gotham, and he needs to burn that claim. He also needs blood from an old nobleman. Old magic wants what it wants. This one wants blood. Batman takes the book, and he's warned that the magic will fight back. Even if he thinks he can handle it, it will find a weakness that he didn't know he had. And then, right before he heads out, he hands Batman an empty vial and says, a boon for a boon. He says he'll know what to do with this, and return to him once he's done. We cut back to the library. Now, Bruce is leaving. He's picked up by Alfred. He has the Heritage Hill deed from the historical archives that he swiped. But now in the car, he's wondering where he can find a nobleman today in Gotham City. Alfred then remarks that the Pennyworth name goes back to the Duke of Devonshire. Bruce says Alfred never told him that, and Alfred remarks that he never asked. Bruce says the ritual could be dangerous, but Alfred says he doesn't frighten easily. All right, Frank, I'll just let you talk here.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
So I got to that scene with Linton and thought, is that Papa Midnight?
Right?
Right.
It is Papa Midnight. That's an interesting choice. You know, my first thoughts were we were going to go the route of Jason Blood.
Yeah.
Or, possibly Madame Xanadu. That was my other choice. I thought, well, maybe it's going to be her, and she's going to be, do tarot cards and all that stuff. And like we normally get, especially since we've seen Corrigan. I thought maybe they were going to, start threading that needle earlier. Mm-hmm. But they didn't, and it's Papa Midnight, which, if you don't know from the comics, Papa Midnight is a fairly he's on the darker side of magic. Like he's usually a bad guy. He's usually a thorn in the side of Constantine. Every now and then they get in a moment where they have we gotta have to team up for a minute, and then they're right back to being adversarial. But for the most part, he's just a really bad guy that's been in a lot of Hellblazer books. So I was kind of surprised that was what they went with. Cedric Yarbrough did his voice. I thought he did a good job. Mm-hmm. In my notes, I've got the thing of the old ghost, old magic, which I thought was interesting because we don't really get it in that moment, but we do get it later in the episode. The idea that Papa Midnight's a lot older than we think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought all this stuff was cool. And again, for the first person that's basically going to help Bruce with his really first supernatural full-on case, for it to be that guy is something I hope they play with, and the idea of why did you make a bad choice?
Right. Clifton, what about you?
I wasn't that familiar with the character, but I did recognize him from Hellblazer, Vertigo type comics. So I knew they were dabbling in the magic side of DC. I do think right now, after being a skeptic, Batman's all in on it pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's not a moment, there's not that, it's a real ghost moment.
Right.
And I don't know if it needs it or not. I just noticed it wasn't there. And that could say something about this Batman, where it is the Arthur Conan Doyle adage, the Sherlock Holmes adage of once you remove the impossible, whatever left, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. And maybe that's just it. Maybe it just reached that tipping point and he's like, well, it's a ghost. And,
right.
And that's that.
What?
So I don't know if it needs that, holy crap, it's a ghost moment or not. It doesn't have it.
I don't know if it needs that, but it does speak to the fact that he's not the typical Uber bat. Mm-hmm. Because again, when we're talking he's walking and learning and doing his thing Kane and Kung Fu, to learn when he needs to be Batman. Even I feel like if Bruce, that most time we get in the comics, even if I don't believe in this fully, at least I know the lore.
Right.
Right. I have something in my back pocket that I know. If I encounter a vampire, I know full well I got to get a wooden stake and a mallet You know what I mean? Or have holy water or garlic, whatever the typical stuff is, even if I don't believe in it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I didn't think that he got. I don't think I needed the full on ghost, or I didn't need him to be fully flat footed by it. But I think back to like 70s Neil Adams Batman. There are plenty of times where in those, especially in those atmospheric issues, where he runs into something that's a little supernatural, and you get a reaction of like, "Oh my God, what is that?"
Right.
That wouldn't have been out of place, but like you said, Clifton, I don't know if we necessarily needed it.
Right. It's kind of there with the hand freezing thing, but yeah, I guess like, but I guess Clifton, I guess if he reacted more strongly to it.
Right.
Like, what is this? Like, yeah. I had to look up Papa Midnight. Yeah, I was expecting the same thing, frankly, like you're like chasing blood or something, or and interesting to say that sort of like the other people that we thought about like have all like popped up a lot in things. Like original animated series would use Jason Blood, right? Like Madame Xanadu popped up a lot in Young Justice. What's the other one? Zatanna. Zatanna was a lot in like Justice League Dark. In those animated movies. So I'm not saying that that's what motivated it, but it does feel a little bit like, who can we use that's kind of out of left field here? And I think it works great.
The other choice that I thought was a character called Dr. Mist, who is part of the, like, he originally appeared with the Global Guardians in like the Super Friends comic. And he's a mystic character that's part of the Global Guardians that were introduced, that were like, that's where you first get Fire and Ice in the Super Friends comic as well.
Okay.
But yeah, they were characters. They had like a couple appearances in Super Friends, and they moved them in the main continuity, kind of like they did with the Wonder Twins, where they moved them out of the comic. But it's like him and a lot of international heroes. So I thought maybe that was like, at first I thought, was that Dr. Mist? And then immediately I went, oh no, it's Linton Midnight. So okay, very cool.
Yeah, good
choice. Either one would have worked for me, but again, I think that if they're playing true to the comics, the choice of what he did with Midnight is going to come back to haunt him. No pun intended.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Can't wait. No, I thought that scene was great. So
yeah.
All right. So we're wrapping up episode 6 here. So we're in the graveyard now. There's a fire set. Batman reads an incantation from the book. Alfred draws blood from his own hand with Batarang, lets it drip onto the deed. They're about to burn when the ghost appears and the deed starts flapping in the wind. They fight. He says Gotham is vile, and there was a time when the lower classes knew their place. Alfred gets the deed and sets it to flame, and then the ghost hands then catch fire, and his mask peels away, and we see it's a decomposed face, and he goes up in flames. So the spell's working. Alfred holds the deed. The smoke lifts from the ghosts, burning up, but steers towards Batman. It's kind of tough to describe. You'll see the visual a little better when you watch the episode. So the smoke that came up from the ghost is heading towards Batman. Alfred jumps in the way, and the smoke enters Alfred's mouth. And then Alfred falls to the ground. He's passed out, and then he's awakened, possessed by Craddock's ghost. And then Alfred attacks Batman with the battering he used to cut his own hand. He says the old man is fighting him off and protecting a secret like a candle in the storm, perhaps one that he doesn't wish Batman to know. And aren't you just dying to find out what it is? Alfred gets control momentarily and says to kill him before the ghost makes him kill you. Batman says never. The ghost gets back control and then gets the better of Batman. We see the last scrap of the deed is still intact, and Batman pulls a flare gun and fires it to burn it, which is now, the ghost is now fully exorcised from Alfred. Batman holds up the empty vial, which is now glowing red, and then the smoke enters the vial, spewing light as it travels. And then Batman corks the smoke, which is sparking, and then tends to Alfred. What's this secret about Alfred? I'm curious.
I think it's the shot, the scene that we saw earlier in the season of him hearing the gunshots and running.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was something that happened that he was supposed to be there. Maybe he was supposed to take Bruce to the alley. I don't know. But it's something. I think it's something. Obviously, it's going to be something awful. It could also just be something to play with, to plant paranoia in Bruce's mind.
Right.
But that was my first thought, because there's that little little bit after, like where he's just running for once he hears the shots, and it seems like he's not where he's supposed to be.
Right.
My mind went to the same place as Frank, just based on what we know of this Pennyworth in this show so far.
Right.
That's all I was thinking too. Of like, what's like, it's something he doesn't want Bruce to know, but it could just be something that would be important to Bruce.
Yeah.
And trust. So we'll find out. But that's where my mind went as well.
The first time I watched it, I thought that it was just kind of a throwaway line about keeping his identity secret. And then I was like, no, that's not it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was first thinking as well.
Okay.
That was my first thought as well. But then something about it made me think, no, I don't think that's it.
Did also make me, I don't know why, I kept thinking possibly Julia Pennyworth as a thing too, that maybe, because like that, she's a character we haven't seen played with a lot and really in anything, and I thought that may be a fun thing to kind of distinguish the show a little bit too. Yeah. For listeners that don't know, so she's the daughter of Alfred that existed, man, it's a lot. Pre-crisis, and then the character kind of like disappeared and wasn't used anymore, like post-crisis. Right. In the 80s and stuff like that, but she's seen kind of like a semi resurgence in the New 52 era with like Batman Eternal. I think that she kind of had a little bit of a role there. So
and sort of appears in the Batwoman show.
Okay. Oh, does she?
Yeah.
Okay, so she comes and goes. She's not used terribly much, but you know, on occasion. I mean, well, that surprises me, and that she popped up in the Batwoman show. But so maybe that. We'll see. But no, I think you guys are probably more closer to what it actually is. So, all right. So Batman shows genuine concern for Alfred, who wakes up. He's weakened. Batman calls him a fool and asks him, what was he thinking? If he died, he says he can't do this job without him. And Alfred says he knows. Batman helps him to his feet. We see Midnight in the distance. Batman hands him the vial. Midnight says to the vial, "Hello there, Jim. It's been a long time." Craddock's voice is in the vial and pleads not to be left with that man. Batman asks what he'll do with him. Midnight says he probably doesn't want to know. Batman agrees, and then Midnight exits saying nice doing business with him. And then we close out on the courthouse during the day. Gorman tells Dent that after the train incident, he's dropped another 15 points in the polls. The donors have rescinded their money. The campaign is broke. Dent tells him to get out, and he needs to think. Dent calls a number on his phone. It's Thorne, and he says, "Let's talk." And that's how we end. So, all right, final thoughts on Night Ride. What'd you guys think?
Again, I think it's, that he's Batman's a little, for something he doesn't know a whole lot or doesn't seem to know a whole lot about. He's pretty cool with the idea of like, I'm just going to give this guy to this other guy and hope everything goes okay.
I feel like he just didn't want to deal with it at that point.
It's possible. It's possible that's what it was. It's just like, I've had enough of this ghost nonsense. But it was also just kind of like, yep, take him off my hands, whatever. Yeah. Whatever you're going to do with him.
Yeah.
I did like the bit of Harvey throwing that was it a snow globe? No, what was it? What did he throw? Do you remember? The crack in the glass bit was nice.
Yeah.
As a bit of foreshadowing, just like, we all know it's coming.
Right.
But that was a good bit. Yeah, again, just the whole thing of Bruce and Bruce's, weird relationship with Alfred in this series is kind of being like, yep, I can't do this job without you.
Right. But that was the first, I think this was the first one that has like the real subtext of like he actually does care. Like,
right.
He just like it's a facade of someone, like he won't let it show through, but it goes back to what Linton Midnight told him, where he said the ghost will, I forget what it was exactly, but he says like the ghost will
attack a weakness he doesn't know he has.
Basically, yeah, it'll come for your weakness, even ones you don't know you have. Find your weakness you didn't even know you had.
Yeah.
And I think that's Pennyworth, where it's like he's not acknowledging it, but as soon as he's in danger, like it's there, like he knows that he cares. And I think it's the first time we get the real like subtext of the relationship that we're all expecting and used to, that just isn't there in this version.
Yeah, and I did think that more need to be made of the fact that Alfred doesn't hesitate to jump in front of him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's Batman, for goodness sake. Alfred's like, nope, I'm gonna stand in front of this, whatever this is.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool too.
This is a good one. I like this one a lot.
Yeah,
I thought this was a really cool episode. Yeah, and So yeah, to answer your question you asked earlier on in the episode, I do dig the Gentleman Ghost design here. Okay. Because I like the idea that they were playing with the fact of like, is it a guy in a suit or is it a real ghost?
Right.
And I think had they gone with a traditional design, I think that it would tip the hat too much in one direction.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So no, I thought it was really, really well done. I like this one. So, all right, but let's move on. So episode 7, Moving Target, written by Adama Ebo and Adani Ebo. Hope I'm saying those names right. And directed by Christina Sada. All right, so we open the courthouse during the day. There's a client who is thanking Barbara Gordon for getting him his freedom. So this is at the end of a trial. After he leaves, her dad, Commissioner Gordon, appears behind her and says, "Another day, another criminal let off by a technicality." She's annoyed to be having this conversation yet again, is the feeling that's conveyed. Gordon says he did it, and Barbara says he acts like he never heard of mitigating circumstances before. Prison shouldn't be the default. She wonders if the cops did their jobs instead of pinning her client with flimsy evidence. He cuts her off and says they're good cops, they just made a few mistakes. And then she rebuts, so cops can make mistakes, but citizens can't. And he tells her she's being naive as they exit the courthouse together. He says, inside people know the difference between right and wrong. So when they choose wrong, they should be punished. Outside, Montoya and Corrigan rush up the stairs to the commissioner, and they say the commissioner needs to come with them. They just got a tip, but they're cut off by a man yelling at Gordon. He pulls a gun. We hear a gunshot, but it's the gunman who hits the ground. Corrigan shot the assailant, and then Montoya says that they've got a problem. And we roll the open. So maybe didn't need to, but I wanted to get into that conversation between dad and daughter there. The defense attorney here, the role that Barbara plays as a defense attorney now in this show, I think presents an interesting setup for this difference in philosophy with them. I think this conversation is still possible in the traditional setup, but I think it's heightened the fact that they're these two different sides of the system. So I wanted to see what you guys thought.
Yeah, I think from a character point, it's an interesting conversation. I do think it is like the more interesting part of the open myself too, like that they chose to open with more or less like the little philosophical conversation, the difference of the two characters. We haven't seen Gordon be that black and white, I don't think, myself.
Not generally, no.
So this one, it was, again, like getting used to like this version of him, but it is an interesting debate to have, and I like to see where it goes with these two characters from here, how it plays out between them.
All right, so we open up in the police station. Shooter's name was Floyd Lawton.
What?
Works contract jobs, but he's still in surgery, so they can't question him about who hired him. Flash says the word out on the street is that there's a hit on Gordon, and they say they should start looking at the money. People with resources made this contract. Bullock then says that instead they should go out to the street and start rouse the East End and start busting some skulls. They need to send a message it's not okay to shoot at cops. Gordon says he's not about to turn the streets into a war zone. He says no task force on this. Work the streets, but do it smart. Then he goes into his office. We see Barbara is already in there waiting for him. She says that they need a protection detail. Gordon says to stop. They got the guy and he doesn't need any help. She says there was a hit and they won't stop only after one attempt. Montoya comes in and says Barbara's right, that they do need a detail and they should go to a safe house until they can learn more. She suggested it's Thorne. Gordon questions like why him, and he says that he refuses to run off scared. And besides, if he's gone, there's no telling what Flash and Bullock will get into. So he's staying put. Barbara leaves, slamming the door. Montoya follows, saying she'll do everything she can to protect her dad. And then we're at the courthouse again at night now. Barbara's working late in her office. Batman appears. He says he's been looking into the hit on her dad. The order came from inside Blackgate Prison. It's an open hit, meaning anyone can collect if they complete the job. She says it's personal for someone, and that Gordon has been a cop for 30 years, so the suspect list will be long. He says to get her dad someplace safe, and he'll find out more, and he disappears. So, what do we think so far?
Well, I don't mind Easter eggs, you know that. I do think it's kind of weird that was a choice. I mean, it's a choice. You can do it.
It's a choice.
Yeah.
But I also think it's a short-sighted choice.
Right.
Now, granted, that might just come from my affinity for Deadshot, Floyd Lawton, the convict.
Yeah.
From Suicide Squad and his own stuff. And I like that character a lot. And traditionally, I would not, especially in this setting, I wouldn't mind the idea of, since we're dealing with a lot of like old money type stuff or old Gotham type stuff, to have the Lawton family be something.
Yeah.
Now they may revisit it and revise it and reshape it. But, the idea that we don't have sort of like the gentleman fop kind of Floyd Lawton attempt at being a bad guy or being a hitman or whatever.
Right.
And immediately it's just, looks like a gangster type.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even get a shot off.
No.
He doesn't even get a shot.
Well, the other thing
I think that's smart, though.
Yeah, well, of course, because if he had, one of them would be gone.
Yeah.
But no, again, I just think there's plenty of other characters you could have used.
Right.
But just to get the moment of like, oh, I know that character. So that was kind of disappointing. I didn't really like that.
Yeah.
It is surprising, though. Let me jump in really quick there, because normally you see a mustache, it's a tell that it's Deadshot.
Right.
But this is one, I think, again, because of the 1940s setting, that you see a mustache and you just think like, okay, they just designed that guy with a mustache. And you don't think necessarily, right? Because there's nothing else about it that makes you go Deadshot. Right?
No,
there's no wrist guns, nothing like that. There's no red, no yellow. There's no other Easter egg for it.
Right.
I do think it's smart that if they're gonna do it, he doesn't get a shot off.
Right.
Because I agree. I think because he wouldn't miss.
No.
But
one of them would have been gone.
But it is also, and obviously we're gonna review the whole episode. We'll get into it. I mean, but the whole episode could have easily been him.
Oh,
this could have easily been a Deadshot episode.
Yeah, for sure.
And it is interesting that he's just in here for like a second.
Yeah.
When he is a character that goes back that far.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you look at Deadshot's first, I don't have the year in front of it, but he's an old character. Yeah. He's a very old character that goes back to, I want to say, late 40s.
I believe so. I think you're right. Because that's not the version that the one that the Marshall Rogers and who's the writer on that stuff in the 70s?
Englehart. Steve
Thank
Englehart.
you. Yep. Englehart is revamps the character and makes him to more of what we know today. But yeah, I think that was my only thing was, again, if it's just like a little tease of like, we'll get him 1950 is when he's
1950. Okay.
Yeah, but look, he's sort of like then he sort of looks like the Monopoly man.
He does, yeah,
with a domino mask and a gun. So not that we kind of know him as from like Suicide Squad or from the movie and or the comic.
Yeah.
Or Secret Six, if you're
interesting choice.
It is. Like I said, that was my only thing. I was like, it's okay. All right, that's a thing. We can do that. Just come back and fix him. We'll give him a costume.
It may be set up. It may be set up for something we don't know. But at the moment, it seems sort of like, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Right, it comes off more name drop than Easter egg at the moment.
Yeah, it does.
No, I also like, Bruce or Batman showing up in Barbara's office was cool.
Yeah.
That was a fun bit.
It's much more of a Batman Jim Gordon thing.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that it's like a Batman Barbara Gordon thing.
Right.
Like he's showing up in her office.
Yeah, because it wouldn't have this. Because if they went traditional, it wouldn't have the same oomph if he like showed up in the car, in like where the card catalogs would be, or the Dewey Decimal table. Like they just pops up out of that. Wouldn't quite.
Yeah, if she was the librarian.
Yeah, wouldn't have the same oomph as this one did. So
yeah. So no, but I think I dig the setup. I dig the setup a lot for this one. I think it's cool. So all right. So we go to Blackgate Prison. The staff is crooked. It sounds like inside, Batman beats up two guards. He finds an inmate and says that he put a price on Gordon's head, but he's just the middleman. The guy's name is Muller. He's in solitary, so they needed a go-between. But there's a complication. After the first guy botched it, Muller doubled the price. So there's a whole slew of pros coming from out of town to collect.
Mm-hmm.
As he's saying this, we cut to a train station. We see a crew of suits exiting the train station. The final guy gets off, dressed as all the others, but he puts a mask on.
Right.
It's a full face mask with like a bullseye on it, and dun dun dun. It's onomatopoeia.
Yes.
A much more recent bad guy.
Yes.
Compared to Deadshot. In jail, Batman greets Muller, asks why he's trying to kill Gordon. He comes at Batman with a knife. Batman disarms him and interrogates him. And then we cut to a suburb neighborhood where Jim is driving home. Cops and Barbara are outside of his house waiting. They say that they're still an active threat and they need to get him out of here. He says to let them come, and then he motions to his revolver. Barbara says he can't bring this risk home with him. Miss Johnson and the other neighbors could be collateral damage. And Gordon looks around and notices the kid toys outside across the street, so he reluctantly agrees. They pack him up, and they head to the safe house. They get into an unmarked car. On the drive, he asks Barbara if hired killers are victims of circumstance too. He says there are times when things are black and white. So I dig that scene at the outside of his house. I really like that moment. Frank, I'm assuming you had the same feel I had, but it felt very Untouchables to me.
Yeah, a little bit.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
When they all go to is it Ness's house they're going to?
They go to Ness's. Yeah.
When they go to Elliot Ness's house and they pick up his family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it felt just out of that movie for me.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah, I definitely got that too as well.
Yeah, and I really dug the you can't bring this home with you, and like he's seeing like the kids' toys and stuff like that. I thought it was a really nice way of sort of putting the stakes there. They're like, no, like these people could all get caught in the crossfire, and I liked it. It's a believable way to sort of like get them moving.
Right. It's subtle and not subtle. Like you know exactly. They show you a tricycle and you get it. Like you get the thoughts that are going through his head like when you see the tricycle. It's a nice bit.
Oh, it's effective. I like it. It's good. So, all right. So they're in the unmarked car. The phone inside Gordon's house rings. It's Batman calling from the Batcave, but there's no answer because he's in the car. He says he'll try and track them down. They need to know what saying this to Alfred. He says they need to know what they're up against. Cops drive outside the city to a safe house, on the way to a safe house, where no one will find them. They're being tailed by a police car. Gordon complains that they got an escort too. They say it wasn't them. Jim says that they aren't their men and to look out. The guys in the cop car start to shoot. Driver is the driver.
Yeah, I thought
and he's
funny.
it.
Right.
Barbara grabs the wheel. And she tricks them to drive off the road, and then the police car careens off a cliff. Montoya says the safe house isn't safe anymore, and now driver needs medical attention. They all pile back into the shot-up car now, and they make it as far as they can before it breaks down, and they have because they have engine trouble from the bullets. Driver doesn't have much time. They need to find a phone and call an ambulance for him. But Montoya says that they were attacked by folks in a cop car and they don't know who to trust right now. So they need to find a place to hunker down and patch up driver for the night. They're out near Wayne Gardens, a new suburb development being built. So they ditch the car behind the sign and they move on foot into the neighborhood that's still under construction. Driver's only getting worse. And they look for the model home, which is always built first as a place to hunker down. So I like the movement of this. I like this one really feels like everything's piling up against them.
Mm-hmm.
I really dig how this one is coming together. It feels a little Back to the Future-y.
Yeah, behind the car. Yeah, that's what I thought too. It was Lion Estates. Right. Yeah, that's what I thought for sure. Yeah, that's what gave me that vibe too.
Yeah, I was like, I'd seen that shot before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I did like the bit about let O'Hara know.
Yeah.
Thought that was a good bit. Because again, Chief O'Hara from Batman 66, as well as Dozier Drive. Was it Dozier Drive or Dozier Road? Dozier Road.
Dozier Road, I believe.
For William Dozier, who is the film producer and television writer for Batman 66.
Yeah.
But that was a nice bit. Here's the thing, and I think Zach and I think you and I have talked about this before. The problem with bringing in somebody from out of town that has a scary reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Is you can't just say they're from out of town and they have a scary reputation.
Mm-hmm.
You have to show that. And I think that it was because I was getting like we're getting like again the fight with them and the model home was fine. I had no problem with that. Mm-hmm. I was thinking it was gonna be a lot more Last Standish.
We're not there yet though.
Sorry. Yeah. I'm just saying the build up to that when we get to that point I thought was going to be, but again it ties the whole thing with Onomatopoeia where I thought. We got a little bit of him being a guy, but we also got a little bit of him having a gimmick.
Yeah.
So Don't know, but again, it's not one of those.
There's a final boss quality from him from the moment he's introduced, I think.
Yeah, a little bit.
But all right, so let's get more into it though. So let's go a little bit farther. So Onomatopoeia and his crew find the police car wreck. Those guys were only supposed to follow, not engage. And they're wondering like how they're supposed to find them now. And Onomatopoeia finds the trail of oil on the ground leading to the Wayne Garden signs. Batman hears on the police radio the info of a shootout and a possible officer down. Someone chimes in requesting verification of the location, saying that they don't have any officers there tonight. Batman hears that and turns around and starts heading towards them. Cops are hunkered down in the model home, and driver is passing out from blood loss. And Barbara says they can't even call for backup because they don't know who in the department they can trust. And she adds, this is why she doesn't believe in the system. Gordon avoids the conversation and checks the perimeter again. Montoya says this place doesn't even feel like Gotham. Barbara says it reminds her of where she grew up, Ellsworth Hills. Montoya remarks it's a rich spot. She says rich people can't stomach the real city and they go to the suburbs to where it looks nice. Barbara takes offense, saying that they didn't leave, they just went across the river and they aren't rich, it was her grandfather's house. Montoya says it's still not really the city. And Barbara says she doesn't miss it. Gotham feels beyond help, her dad adds, who's overheard the entire conversation. Corrigan goes to make coffee to break the tension. And then there's a gunshot as he walks by and they all take cover. Onomatopoeia and his men are outside and they all fire on the inside of the house. So, I like this conversation, but it's strange. I'm not quite sure why Montoya goes after Barbara this way.
I agree. It comes out of nowhere. It's very weird.
Yeah.
It's a very much a decision of we have to have the same conversation, but we can't have it with Gordon because Gordon's doing something else. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. I thought it was clunky. It served story, I guess, but again, it made no sense as to why there was some, they're not living in Wayne Manor.
Mm.
Right. You just showed us Jim's house. Jim's house is modest. It's not he lives in a neighborhood.
Mm.
So it's not like they live in some place that's like super fancy. But again, it was I didn't like that conversation. Again, especially they're supposed to be friends because it did not come as like she was.
That was my thing. They're friends. I mean, I can eat it if it's sort of like the stress of the situation getting to them. But the other thing is too is like it's her dad also. Like it's a comment about her dad.
Yeah.
Who she idolizes.
Right.
Montoya, meaning.
Right. Yeah. Right. That's what I'm saying. Is like again, it's one of those situations where. It's not a friendly conversation. It's not a jab. It's I'm going for you on this. It's in the middle of this stuff. Yeah. As a scene, I didn't think it worked. I did not care for that.
Okay. Clifton, any thoughts?
Yeah, again, I agree with that. The conversation it's definitely clunky and slowing down what should be I think more tension building moment than it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're cornered in unfamiliar terrain and they're waiting for what could happen. I feel like it should have been a little more tension being built and it kind of takes the tension's just not there when I'm like, well, why are they having this argument?
Right.
But setting's cool. Like we'll get into that too as the thing. I do like that this is happening in a housing development, strangely.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an uncommon setting and there's some character to the setting itself in the Gotham of that time when you had, the suburban flight of the 50s and like what it means to the cities, which is I think what they're trying to get to with this conversation, but it's just not landing.
No. I agree with you, Clifton, that there's one of the things where like now that you say it, I'm like, yeah, that makes more sense. But
right.
Again, it's not like I couldn't even afford to live here. It's not even one of those kind of conversations.
Yeah.
So, which, it was not, like I said, they need another, another pass at that one. Sorry. Yeah. Not to be a jerk. I'm not trying to be a jerk with some of his work.
Right. But. Yeah.
So, all right. So the cops hold a position and try and take out the bad guys. They manage to shoot a few, maybe 7 more outside Montoya counts. Batman arrives and starts to take them out one by one. I'm going to go through this pretty fast. I mean, not for any other... Not to be reductive of it, just the third act is kind of punchy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll try and I'll try and sort of hit the beats of it and everything. But I mean, it's a big. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying that I mean it's a big like action packed like third act.
Right.
With not a lot of conversation. You have a bad guy who doesn't talk.
Right.
Except to say, sounds. So
blip, blip, blip.
Right.
Which is fun. I think they're all done really well in
Effects.
here. The way, so two get away from Batman, and they make it into the house. Corrigan fights with one and Barbara with the other. Batman and Onomatopoeia fight outside. There's some bonk pow, phrases, words getting thrown around, which is nice. It's a nice Batman 66 Easter egg. Bad guy inside grabs a knife. Barbara and Corrigan team up and take them both down. Batman beats Onomatopoeia. And then Gordon comes outside. Batman says that this is the end of the contract, and it's been canceled, and no one else is coming. Gordon says it's great. Now everyone can start worrying about him. And Batman says Commissioner wasn't the target. Inside, Corrigan draws a gun on Barbara and says that he's said that she has a real unhappy former client in Blackgate. He says it's just so much money. He's setting it up to look like it was one of the crooks so he can get away. Jim shoots Corrigan's gun out of his hand and Barbara punches him out. And then Barbara hugs her dad and the rest of the cops arrive and take them all in. Driver will be okay. And Corrigan is taken in. In lockup, Mueller meets with Barbara and he says he took the hit off of her, so tell her friend that he did what he said. But she remarks that she got him the best possible deal, and he says that this was the best deal, this place, meaning the jail, the prison. She has no idea what it's like. He says that, he's done some bad things, but it's not like these other inmates. He's made some mistakes, and she could have done better for him. He says he doesn't deserve to be here, and she says he does, and she ups and leaves, and we fade out. So that's the episode. I like this episode a lot. A lot. I really do. Like I said, this does a lot. Like I just dig this. I like hunker down episodes, and I like. Frank, I'll disagree with you a little bit. We're like, I don't know that Onomatopoeia, I don't think needs to do a whole lot. I just think the episode does a good job of putting like this, like putting them such like so against the wall, which I do buy.
Okay,
but I'll sit back. I'll let you guys go.
All right. Like I started to say earlier, I jumped the gun. I do think, again, I have this thing of, like, if you're telling me you're bringing out of town talent, it's a big deal, it should be a big deal. That should, that's my thing about it is they should be better shots. I mean, I understand that 3 of their police officers, and I'm sure Barbara trains with her 22 or whatever she had in her purse. But I liked Onomatopoeia. I thought it was fine. It's a fine take. It's whatever. The fight in the house I thought was good. It was kind of a good visceral fight between with Barbara and Corrigan, her fight with the 2 guys in the back. I thought that was great. The reveal of it not being Jim, okay, sure, fine, whatevs. But the bigger thing for me is I didn't like it that it was Corrigan.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think the 40s motif, the 40s setting leads itself to, no, that guy's getting a cement overcoat in the worst way.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing is like, I want that moment so badly because I don't think we've ever seen it animated, much less in, I think he appears in Constantine, the live action series, but I don't remember if they actually give him an origin for being the...
Corrigan does?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Corrigan appears in that. He's hinted at that he is the, spoiler alert for those who don't know, he's the Spectre.
Mm-hmm.
But I would love to see that done the way it's done is, in the comics, that he's crossed somebody and now he's going to get dumped to the bottom of the ocean. But I don't know. I have no idea what the plans are for that character, what they're going to do with him beyond what we saw tonight. Well, I saw it tonight. But I just kind of felt like I don't mind. Again, I like the hunker down. I like the we're surrounded. I like all that stuff. I don't know what about it didn't work. I didn't. The other thing is I thought it was kind of. I understand wanting to take a hit out on someone. I didn't understand why it necessarily had to be someone who was in prison. Like I get it, but it didn't necessarily work for me.
Okay.
I like a lot of aspects of the episode. I kind of agree with Frank on the threat. I'm not familiar with Onomatopoeia from the comics. I mean, I know he's a villain that exists, but I've not read any onomatopoeia stories that I can remember. And so far, not really a fan.
Okay.
Like it just didn't have like the oomph that I thought they were going for, especially for me who barely knows anything about him. Because I was like, I see the guy getting off the train. I was like, okay, he's got a circle face.
Right. It's circle face. You know, circle face.
You know, circle face.
I mean, Batman punched him in the throat. I thought was a nice bit. I thought that, well, that makes sense. Of course, that makes, stop that whole what his thing is of
right.
doing
yeah.
But
it's like, how is he a boss if he only speaks in sound effects?
Right.
Right.
What I dig though is he is the first guy that appears to go toe to toe with Batman that we've seen. Everybody else that like every other fight with Batman is like he's been able to take out people pretty quickly, except for Gentleman Ghost, which there's shenanigans in that. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of what does it for me a little bit is the fact that fight is not terribly one-sided. That makes me go like, oh wow, okay, that guy's a heavy hitter. But that was enough for me. So, all right, any final thoughts on 7?
Do we think that Barbara's turned a corner, or is she's still kind of like, no, people make mistakes?
It's kind of hard to read in the episode, I think, because she's like, well, you deserve to be here. And I was like, yeah, like he put a hit out on you. Of course he deserves to be, Of course he deserves to be in prison.
Right.
But even then she seems to like she tears up after that once she's out of there. And I was like, is she feeling bad that she was, is coming to agree with her dad? But I was like, yeah, this guy deserves to be in prison, clearly.
Right. But I just thought, again, like I said, the whole idea of like, I'm in prison, but I'm going to put a hit on a person. And I guess that stuff happens, but it also is kind of like, I can understand. It would have worked better for me if he had been out and tried to have her killed, because then he's out of prison. But being still stuck in prison, I'm like, oh, well, you're still, at the end of the day, you're still going with the chow line and all that other stuff.
Right.
So.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'll agree with you there. I do think that would make it work a little bit. I think, right, because I think he's there to further get the idea out that it's for Jim. Right, to kind of hint at the fact like, oh, this is like a Thorn associate, or this is
right,
somebody connected to the mob and stuff like that. And when we meet the guy, like we still don't really like know what his deal is,
right,
or what he did. So I think that's sort of like to protect the reveal a little bit.
Gotcha.
But I do agree. I think from a motive standpoint, I think, yeah, if it was a guy out, I think not from a motive standpoint, from a storytelling aspect, they would maybe hit the theme a little bit more of like, this is a guy who was out, like, served his time. Maybe he was there just for a mistake.
Right.
And he just can't
let it go.
Sort of like let go of the, of what he just went through in prison, and he's trying to get rid of her.
Well, or, like he could go after her for the fact that he lost all that time, whatever you want to do,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it does do, like I said, I mean, I like a lot just the moving target of it all. I think like that's all done like really, really well.
Yeah,
so
no,
it is one of my favorite ones of the season.
Okay.
So, all right. So we got one more for this part. So episode 8, Nocturne, written by Haley Gross, directed by Matt Peters. We open on a old country house. It's an orphanage. Night. 2 kids sleeping in bunk beds. The older one tells the younger one, Jace, to come with him. Jace is nervous they'll get into trouble. But they go outside into the woods. The older one says, how's Dr. Tompkins going to find out? Besides, tell me that's not worth the extra chores. And they see a carnival being set up. Big banner, come and see the oddities. Bearded woman walks by, as they're looking from behind a fence. An older kid, a teenage girl, very goth, enters, saying the carnival is magic. The tent holds secrets if you're brave enough to find out. Very ghost story vibes. The older kid says it's not that scary, so she dares him to go on in and pet the goat, but he declines. So she jumps the fence, clucking like a chicken. The older kid says he ain't no chicken and follows. Younger kid protests. We see now that the older kid is named Dickie. Chase looks on in concern. The girl says, once they're inside, now let me show you something really strange. She pulls him into one of the trailers. He's nervous. She asks, I thought you weren't scared. He replies that he isn't. And then they enter into the dark and we fade to black. And then we roll the open. So, all right. Dickie.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts?
It's a choice.
It is.
Well, and Jace. Jace and Dickie
Jace.
is a choice.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Clifton.
I mean, it's fallen into the Lloyd Lawton territory again. We'll get into it more later, I imagine.
Yes, we will, for sure.
Dickie, though, I mean, they take a while to name Dickie.
Right.
But you kind of know it by looking at it. I mean, that's what the summary doesn't.
Black-haired Dickie and red-haired Jace.
Yeah. Jace has got the original hair before he's forced to dye it. So he looks more like Dickie.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's an interesting setup. I mean, it's an interesting setup. I always like for the time period. Again, like black-haired Dickie in a carnival. I was like, where's this going?
Right. Right.
And then we'll see where it's going. But I mean, that's what I'm thinking in the open. And then we get like the Wednesday Addams looking girl.
Yeah.
Right.
And at first, again, we don't know her deal yet. But I was like, we got like Dickie and Jace. Like, is this like Zatanna somehow? But we'll find out what this deal is on this girl. Those are just my initial thoughts in the open.
Okay.
But I like carnival sets. It's always a fun set piece.
It is. All right. So after the open, it's the next night. The carnival is now open. Kids and parents are having fun. It's a big scene. Bruce Wayne is there on a date. The press stops him and his date, Julie, for a photo. They ask what brings him to the carnival. He says, the next mayor of Gotham City, Harvey Dent. He's told that Dent is behind in the polls, and he's asked if he thinks bringing the carnival to town will help give him the boost that he needs, and Bruce replies that he hopes it reminds people how much Harvey gives back to the city. A bus stops and unloads a bunch of super excited kids, and then we see Dr. Tompkins come off the bus, who Bruce recognizes. They hug. They're happy to see each other. Bruce suggested the press write a piece on her, that she dedicates her life to helping the youth of Gotham. And then Dent enters. Tompkins thanks Dent for inviting the kids here, and they've really been looking forward to it. Dent wasn't aware that she and Bruce knew each other. She says Bruce is the orphanage's most generous donor. He jokes that it's a hell of a tax write-off, and she says he's not fooling anybody here, Buster. Bruce says that she's an old friend and she used to work with his dad. She calls a whistle and all the kids come running. And then she says, it's time to take a picture of with Mr. Dent. So they snap a picture and Harvey's a little uncomfortable around all the kids. And then he says, all right, kids, go have fun. And remember to tell everyone to vote Dent in November. And the kids run off and go have their fun. So in a tent, we see Dr. Knight showing his traveling laboratory. Years he's spent trying to tap into the hidden capabilities of the human species, and tonight he wants to show off his findings. He asks for a strong volunteer from the audience. A big, burly giant of a man comes on stage. Morris is his name. Knight asks him if he thinks he could lift the barbell on stage. Morris tries to no avail, moving it only slightly. Morris goes back to his seat. Knight now asks for another volunteer. He takes the young girl in the third row, Natalia, the teen girl from the open. He asks her to lift the weight. She can't, obviously. And then he opens a booth and asks her to step inside, saying it's safe. He plays to the crowd. He says he wants them to believe in things that they cannot. He straps on goggles and flips a switch, and the electrodes fire up, and there's lightning and light bulbs. It's all very classic, like Frankenstein. Energy passes through her, and she exclaims it's working and laughs maniacally. The audience is in awe, and we see Bruce and Julie are in the crowd watching. And then Knight turns off the machine, lets Natalia out, and she says she feels the same. He asks her to lift again, and the weight goes right up over her head, and everybody claps. And we see that Jace is also in the crowd in this moment. So, fun snake oil scene. Thoughts on Tompkins? This is a bit of a departure.
Yeah, she's almost like a orphanage. Like she's running an orphanage instead of like the clinic, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So typically what we've seen in the past is she runs a clinic out in Crime Alley in a very like poverty-stricken part of the city. It's also the place where Bruce's parents were killed, and she runs like a free clinic for the people in the neighborhood over there. So this is a bit of a, still obviously great, respectable, helpful work and everything, but it's a little bit of a change. It's unclear if when they say Dr. Tompkins, if she's even a medical doctor or has any medical, right? The fact that she worked with his dad, possibly, but also, I mean, it could be in another capacity with, charity work or something like that. So, bit of a departure.
This could be like Lucius. It could be like, yeah, she does both. She's this week and she's that, another episode. It doesn't preclude it, I don't think.
Yeah.
She just likes the orphans.
So, but man, Harvey asking kids to tell everyone to vote for Harvey.
Yeah, I mean, there was a fun bit where he's just like, look at the cameras, like it's all he's got. And so he doesn't know what else to do with them. And then one of the kids does like a monster pose, which I liked because so that'll ruin the picture for him.
Right.
What was I going to say? A couple of things I noticed was, one, Bruce says Harvey is the future, which, you can take that either way. He's supposed to be the future mayor or he's the future for what Batman's got to deal with. Julie Madison is the longtime, date sometimes from Batman, right? From like that time, right? Another appearance of Lois.
Yep. Lois,
that's the question.
Okay.
And I thought, more so than before, I found Harvey's design looking like Peter Parker.
Okay.
Like there were a couple times where like early Ditko Peter Parker, I was like, that's who that's kind of who he looks like. And then just the other thing that I thought was interesting was just some of the voices. You had Haley Joel Osment as Anton Knight.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then McKenna Grace as Natalia.
Right.
Yeah,
she's definitely, I mean, I was going to get into some of that later on.
Okay.
Which I'll save for the end. But yeah, he's most known for Sixth Sense, among other things. He's appeared in other things more recently. Blink twice, surprisingly. An odd role, but a good movie. And then she's, I guess, she's been in a million things, playing the younger version of every actress in every movie ever. In Haunting of Hill House and Captain Marvel and tons of stuff, but probably now Ghostbusters.
Yeah, she's a Ghostbuster.
Is what she's more leading in.
Oh, okay.
And she was on a recurring thing on Young Sheldon too, where she was on.
Correct.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we cut outside. Jace is chasing after Natalia. He says that they never came back last night, and his friend Dickie wasn't in school, and he's worried. She says she saw him earlier, and he's sneaking in. He was sneaking into one of the trailers. She offers to show him, so he goes along. She asks his name. He says his name is Jason. His friends call him Jace. So there we go. That confirms it. That's the cut to the dunking booth where Harvey is the target and goes into the drink. He jokes, "You can sink Harvey Dent, but not in the polls."
This is going to go as well as that Subway thing.
Yep. He gets back up. Julie's about to take a shot, but before she connects, he sees that Thorne and a goon are standing behind in the crowd. So then we cut back to Natalia opening a trailer door. Jace calls for Dickie. There's no answer. She suggests checking the back room. He opens the door, and Dickie's lying on the floor, weak, with bags under his eyes. Jace goes in to check out, but Natalia grabs Jace by the collar and lifts him up with one hand. She opens her mouth and emits a weird scream and begins to steal like spirit energy out of his. Knight enters and interrupts Natalia. She says that the show took a lot out of her. Knight says that they agreed the boy last night would be the last one and that half of Gotham is here tonight. They need to fly under the radar. She says she can't throw him back now. Look at him. Jace is lying on the ground in a haze, unsure of what's happening. Natalia says he'll be the last one. Knight says he's worried she's becoming unglued and calls her little sister. She promises, though, that this is the last one. He exits, and Jace, with tears in his eyes, says, "Don't leave me." We hear the door shut, and then, does he scream? Couldn't remember. All right, so we got a weird power here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's sort of a vampire, but not really.
Yeah.
she's kind of got that thing where, well, they talk about it in a minute, but we'll get to it. But yeah, that's kind of the thing. Is she's in the comics, she's a little more pale skinned and it's, a little more played out, but she had more of a condition where she couldn't be in the sun for too long in the comics.
All right. Who's she a take on from the comics?
Nocturna.
Okay.
She was a supervillain. She first appeared in Batman 363 in September of '83. So she's been around for a while, but she's one of those characters that had before they revamped Jason Todd, I think right after Crisis, they sort of were playing she was I don't know if she was involved with him right around when his first appearance happened. And then she had a romance type thing with Batman, but it was always kind of I don't know if it was supposed to be I think it was more along the lines like a Catwoman type thing where he knew she was up to bad stuff, but at the same time, he was still, attracted to her. But yeah, I mean, it's a take. Again, it's another take on a character. I mean, it was I don't remember if she had any of this energy, psychic stealing stuff, life force stuff. I don't really recall because I haven't read a lot of the Nocturna stuff from the 80s. I know of her. I just don't remember what the stories are.
I don't remember a lot either. I didn't read a ton of it. In my very first trade that I was bought in my life was the greatest Batman stories ever told. Right around Batman 89. My dad bought me this. I was 5 years old, and there was some Nocturna stuff in there. And I'm blanking on a lot, but I always got the sense that she was a legit vampire. I could be wrong, right? But that was always the feeling I had, at least as a kid. I remember. Right. Batman's fighting a vampire in this one.
Right.
But, what about you, Clifton? Any thoughts so far?
No, just it does definitely ramps up to that soul sucking power. Where I was it kind of came out of nowhere. I wasn't sure that's where this was going, and she's just stealing the souls of orphans.
It looks like she tried to adopt Jason Todd.
In the books?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which makes this episode which makes right. Which makes this episode even weirder. Yeah. So but it looks like they were just doing whatever they wanted before Crisis hit, and then once Crisis hit, they were we'll just revamp all this stuff. So
right.
Okay.
I do find this stuff interesting. I do find finding out what their sideshow gimmick was. That we knew she was the plant, obviously, but we didn't know how they were pulling off the strongman gimmick with her. And now we know, she's just strong. She steals people's life force and gets stronger. So that's how that was the prestige on that trick.
Nice.
All right. So they cut outside. Tompkins is out there. She's worried. She sees Dent. She tells him that one of her kids, Steffi, is missing.
Oh no.
Dent clearly has his interest elsewhere. He says it's a carnival. Kids run around. He's sure they'll turn up. And he leaves without a care.
Yeah.
Bruce and Julie over here, though, and approach Tompkins and ask who's missing. Steffi Brown, 9-year-old, green shirt, blonde ponytail.
Sorry, right? not laughing at you. Just I feel I think in this one Clifton and I are in the same boat. But go on, please go on.
Bruce says that they'll look around and Julie will stay with Tompkins, but they appear to be there's genuine concern here. Obviously, he's Batman.
Right.
Dent meets Thorne and his ally in an alley. He says he thought they agreed to keep a low profile. Thorne says everyone enjoys a carnival. He came to give Dent a donation. He can mix it in with the money he takes in here. Dent says he's not comfortable with this. And the goon wonders if Dent is stupid enough to think he can actually win this thing on his own. Thorne says, no, Dent's a smart guy. He knows what's good for him. So Dent agrees reluctantly. Thorne says the money's on his way and to meet him in the parking lot after he's done campaigning. And then, they walk out and the goon shoves him on his way out as they exit. We see now Bruce looking for Steffi. He gets to the Oddities tent. He sees Natalia walking with Steffi Brown. He follows them into the Hall of Mirrors. So we get a cool, mirror sequence where Bruce chases them but gets lost. He hears Steffi scream. So he starts kicking in the mirrors and he kicks out the wall and goes outside looking for her. Out back, he finds the Oddities who ask if he's the one that caused that damage. He says he'll pay for it and asks if he saw the two girls. The bearded woman asks, why is he looking for two girls? It doesn't seem like he's helping. So the oddities all surround him. And Waylon, a reptile man, pulls Bruce's jacket over his arms, and they give him the work over.
Yeah, they hockey fight him.
And because they think he's a creep.
Right.
Understandably.
Yeah.
And they knock him out, and they throw him into a ditch.
Right.
So introduction of Cape Crusaders Killer Croc.
Uh-huh.
It fits.
This one fit. That fits.
It fits. It does, but we'll circle back. We'll circle back. Yes.
All right. So Bruce comes to, and it's closing time. People are exiting. Bruce gets to his feet, goes to the car where Alfred is waiting, reading a book. I'll let you guys do the Easter egg after. Bruce climbs in. Alfred says Miss Madison was looking for him. He put her in a taxi an hour ago. Bruce starts changing and says he'll come up with an excuse. And Alfred says Rupert Thorne was wandering around as well. Bruce says Thorne is the least of his worries. We see Anton Knight walking into his trailer. He overhears Natalia with another kid and barges in furious. Natalia is holding Steffi and draining her energy. He asks if she has any idea how many people out there are looking for her. Natalia says, who cares? And Knight adds, they're talking about not letting anybody leave the carnival until the kids are found. He says, when they wake up, they'll tell everyone, and then they're finished. So, she suggests we stop them from waking up. Dark. Stuff. Knight says that he won't let her hurt them.
Right.
Natalia then guilts him, saying that he wants her to suffer and he doesn't really love her. He tells her to grow up, and then she shoves him against the wall, and the bookshelf falls over on top of him. He's trapped. He says he can't feel his legs. He asks for help, but then she says that he made her do it, and asks who's being a baby now. She leaves and shuts the door, leaving him inside. Kids are calling for Jason, Steffi, and Dickie. We see Batman on the roof of the trailer. A kid asks Tompkins if she's seen Carrie, and Tompkins can't believe that another one is missing, and starts looking for. So interesting. So she starts looking for Carrie. But interesting point here. So this is our first glimpse of Batman in this episode. 14 minutes in.
Yeah.
Okay.
By the time that's daring.
Sure.
I think. I mean, that is well over half of the episode.
Right.
For our hero to show up. And I will say, the episode's moving along nicely that I don't think you notice.
No, there's a lot going on. I think the characters are interesting enough. Even Natalia and Anton are interesting enough to me. The orphans, I don't know.
We'll circle back. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. Promise. We will. Lots of thoughts.
All right. Waylon Croc is picking up crates. Batman sneaks behind him and starts to interrogate Croc. In the parking lot, we see Dent and Gorman waiting. A car pulls up. Dent gets in. Thorne gives him a briefcase full of cash. Thorne says that this and some bad press against Mayor Jessup he's planning should put Dent over the top. But just one thing. He says that he has a case on the docket tomorrow, Milligan. He wants Dent to drop the charges. Dent says he can't do that. Thorne says that the cops lost some evidence. He's sure that that'll be true soon. Dent says Matt Milligan cheated half of Gotham out of their life savings. But Thorne says that he needs to know that Harvey and him can work together like he and Jessup do now. Dent says he's trying to be mayor to fix this city. Thorne then says that reform doesn't come easy, and if he wants to help, there's a price. Dent exits the car with the briefcase. He hands it to Gorman and then says to add it with the rest of the money they collected tonight and not to ask any questions. Dent sees the orphans bus, and he's like, they're still here, so he goes in to talk to Tompkins. He asks, what is she still doing here? She says that they still have kids missing, and she asks one of his aides to call the police, but she thinks that they're nervous about a scandal, so Dent apologizes, saying he was distracted earlier. He reassures her that they'll find him, and he'll go call the police himself. She says to keep an eye out for Bruce, who also disappeared.
I like how bad Harvey's photo ops are going this season. Because, I mean, he just had like the ghost mug people on the train in front of him, and now his next photo op has like a half dozen missing orphans.
Right. All they have to do is point the photo earlier of like, these are all the kids that were missing from this Harvey Dent appearance.
Yeah, exactly. This Harvey Dent photo op. All these kids are gone.
Oh, they're all missing. We can't find them anywhere. We don't know where they are.
That night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see them on the news just checking them off. This one, and this one, and this one, and this one. I liked the bit, the Alias the Grey Ghost was nice.
Okay, the book Alfred's reading.
Yeah, the callback to the Batman the Animated Series and Bruce's childhood hero, the Grey Ghost, voiced and written by Adam West. And then the Max Grantwell, we know the Max Grantwell bit is I had to look that one up. It's a reference to Maxwell Grant. Because apparently that was like the pen name. I guess William B. Gibson, who wrote the Shadow, a lot of times if someone was writing a novel, they would just put it out as Maxwell Grant. And that was like, I guess, a pseudonym for like a studio.
No, like Keen for Nancy Drew and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Like the name that just lived with the character.
Yeah, look, I'm looking at it says, a tribute to the Shadow, Max Grantwell is an obvious reference to Maxwell Grant. Also, there was a story of the Shadow titled The Grey Ghost by William B. Gibson, writing as Maxwell Grant in 1936.
Okay.
So
I did not know all that. That's cool.
It's interesting that Alfred is reading that because he lives it. So I would kind of think that Alfred might want to read something that's a little less like lived in, but nevertheless, And the other thing is, I'm also surprised it's not a pulp. Like, it's not a pulp novel. It looks like it's an actual novel. With the rise of the pulps then. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Dent is definitely leaning towards being awful, not just like kind of not being like, oh, I'm going to skirt it, or, I'll resort to a trick coin or whatever. This is like legitimately getting into bed with the mob.
Yeah.
Which, is probably a terrible, terrible choice.
But this sequence with Tompkins in the bus is maybe the most genuine, I think. I do believe him here, where he's like, we need to find them. And I want to help. This is I think maybe the first genuine moment of that.
Right.
To me.
Yeah, I could see that.
All right. So Batman, with the information Croc gives him, he opens the door to the trailer. He finds the three kids. Anton Knight is still under the shelf, very weak. He says the kids will recover in time, but his sister, as long as his sister doesn't come back. He says his sister has a rare affliction. He's found a way to manage it, but draining others made her strong. He loves her, but she's lost control. He tells Batman to forgive her. She's just a child. Knight isn't sure where to find her, but he says that he needs to get her inside before sunrise or she'll be lost forever. And then Anton Knight dies. Outside in the woods, we see Carrie, redhead with glasses. She has a slingshot that she's using for target practice.
Really?
Don't say.
With some tin cans. Natalia comes up behind her, startling her. This is a cool bit where Carrie tells her that she should be careful and not walk around alone because there's a kidnapper on the loose. She says she's waiting for him, setting herself up as bait, and then when he arrives, she'll shoot him with the slingshot. Go, Carrie. Natalia asks if she can try, meaning the slingshot. Carrie hands it over to her. Natalia says she could barely see the cans and suggests that they go to the shooting gallery. Carrie says the carnival's closed, but Natalia says not for her. Tompkins starts calling the other kids. Carrie says Doc is starting to freak out, so she has to go, but Natalia won't give her the slingshot back. Natalia suggests that they go have some fun, and what's the next night that she'll have a night off from the orphanage, and Carrie grabs her slingshot back, backs away. She started to figure what's what here, and Natalia grabs her and starts to drain her energy. Carrie kicks Natalia and runs away. Natalia chases and kicks over a tree in rage, and this is the moment that Batman is clued in. So Batman hears the tree fall and starts to head towards it. We have a chase sequence in the woods. Carrie runs into the woods alone, hides behind a Looney Tunes log. Right? Natalia finds her and starts draining her powers again. Batman arrives and breaks it up and knocks Natalia to the ground. What are we thinking now?
There's a lot of orphans.
Yeah. There's busloads and busloads of orphans.
It's interesting to me here.
Yeah.
That Carrie's the only one that fights back.
Very much so.
Right?
I thought that too. I had a very much a moment of like, oh, I guess that's how that would work. I mean, granted, we didn't see what happened with Dickie, poor Dickie.
Mm-hmm.
He may have, fought back before he was, she just drained him.
That's true. We don't see really even Jason.
And Steph's being drained before we see her.
Right. Yeah, I Carrie's got her signature slingshot, which is fine. The fight in the woods is okay. I mean, it's not like, it's not bad. I thought it was kind of cool to see Batman manhandled by a little girl.
By Wednesday Addams.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Right.
But, by the same token, I mean, well, how far did we go in the did we get all the way to the end of the fight?
I'll get to the fight. I was just thinking more that like Carrie's given a lot of agency here that the other Robins don't.
The who? What? I'm sorry. What? Who?
Oh, sorry. All right. So Batman arrives and breaks it up, knocks Natalia to the ground, tells Natalia to stop this. She plays possum and throws Batman against a tree. So they're fighting. They're going back and forth. She starts to steal his energy, which appears to give her a little bit more strength. That's at least what she mentions something to the fact.
Right.
He starts to get weak. He says he promised her brother that he'd help her. She says her brother will forgive her. He always does. She starts to drain Batman again. Carrie shoots her with the rock, breaking it up.
Mm-hmm.
That's when Batman tells her that her brother's dead and that she killed him. She doesn't believe him. She says, and then, it starts to come over her. She starts to believe what he's saying and says she didn't mean to, that she couldn't. She falls on her knees and she cries. The sun starts to come up and starts to burn her skin. You see her skin kind of like starting to boil and bubble up. Batman tries to help her to get her out of the sun. She pushes him away and tells him just to go. Harry says, come on, just leave her there. She's a monster. Batman drapes his cape over top of Natalia and carries her off. And they walk back. And this is what I love. Carrie is holding Batman's cape.
Love that.
Yeah. Oh man, I love that bit. So great.
All
right. So then we cut to daytime at a hospital. Carrie is telling the other three kids, Dickie, Jason, and Steffi, that how she saved Batman. Kids all don't believe her, but Tompkins says, no, it's true. Bruce is there as well, checking on them. He asks how the other girl is doing. Tompkins says that she's in the hospital secure wing and the doctors are studying her strange case, and she thanks Bruce to help. So let's start reviewing the episode, but we have one more scene that I'll do after we start reviewing. So I'll shut up. I'll let you guys go.
Well, as Clifford said, there's a lot of orphans.
Yes.
whole lot of orphans.
And like the first couple, I was like, caused my eyebrows to raise.
Right.
Then the third one, it's an eye roll. And then the fourth one, it's like a super eye roll.
Right.
When we start hearing their names. So I don't know what they're doing with all this, but it was a lot to take in this episode in the way they were presenting it for me. A little bit of suspension of disbelief that was being strained for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like Croc fit, like you said, that was not a bridge too far in any way for me. Like we know Croc has history with sideshows and carnivals and in some tellings in Batman the Animated Series for one. So I was like, yeah, that fits. But I was like throwing all these kids at us fast and loose.
Yeah.
with no preamble and no space between them. I don't know. I just don't know.
It has an effect where I just started seeing like every kid in the background. I'm like, is that like right. there was an Asian
Timmy?
kid.
Where's Cassie?
There was an Asian kid in the background that made me go, is that Cassandra Cain?
Yeah.
Honestly, and she doesn't talk, which I'm going, well, but that character is like largely like nonverbal.
Right.
In the books too. So I'm going, okay, well, like it made me go, is that an Easter egg? Is that not? I don't know. Like, is that Duke Thomas? Is that like, I'm like, where's Tim? Where's little Timmy?
Is there a woman holding a baby named Damien anywhere in any of the backgrounds?
Right.
Generally I like this stuff. I like the like, oh, look, that's somebody in the background or that's so-and-so. I mean, but this one has a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, more so than is necessary, I thought.
And like so far out of like all context that we know all at once. It was just throwing a lot of stuff to us.
Right. I mean, but the other thing is just the idea of you have them all like when there have been times that people have made the joke about Robin the boy shield or Robin the boy disposable partner, or to have them all in one orphanage that Bruce knows the person who runs it feels weird.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That it's just kind of like I'm gonna flip through the orphan catalog and take the one that I want. I mean, but it also the other thing. I mean, granted, you could play the game of like, well, it's not really them,
right?
But then why put them in the episode that way?
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, because again, I mean, I know we're supposed to get another season, but to me, it's like, well, you basically shot. You shot the for the moon on all these possible sidekicks. Right. When we know the first one out of the chute's supposed to be Dick. So again, I don't know how this got past someone who in like someone who's supposed to be keep an eye on like how the arc of the story is supposed to go. Because it seems like a fun throwaway bit.
So okay, so let's name them. Let's name the ones that we get. So Dickie's obviously Dick Grayson, the first Robin.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Jason is obviously Jason Todd, the second Robin.
Right.
Steffi Brown is not a
she's
Robin
the fourth
per
Robin.
se.
She's a Robin for a moment.
She's the fourth. She's Robin 4.
She's a Robin for a moment. She's mostly spoiler.
Right.
She's mostly known as spoiler, which is also, this is the other thing too. In the book, she's not an orphan.
True.
Right?
True.
Because her dad is the clue master.
Right.
Right. So that's a departure in essence.
Mm-hmm.
Which made me go, well, maybe that's why Tim's not there, right? Initially, that's why I go, like, well, Tim has parents, that's why he's not there. But it then made me go, but Steffi has parents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, so I was like, okay, I'm confused. And then Carrie is obviously Carrie Kelly from Dark Knight Returns.
Right.
Which, not to skin too many cats here, but Carrie Kelly's supposed to be not even born.
Right.
At this point, right? Like Bruce is supposed to be a very old man when she's a kid.
Exactly.
But so we're playing with this. I mean, so
it's interesting because Gotham Knights did as well. They made her in present day with Steph as well. So things like to do that. Stories like to do that now. Bring Carrie from the future into present storytelling.
Well, we have an animated precedence for it as well in Legends of the Dark Knight. From the New Adventures of Batman and Robin we got the episode where they have the Carrie Kelly in the future, and then the old school Dick Sprang story, and then the modern one with, was it Firefly, right?
Yeah.
But then that's fine. It's just again, I if you had any interest at all in having it at one point be a Batman and Robin type thing, and again, I think it's for Bruce's development, I think the idea of, hey, there's someone else who went through this horrible thing that you went through, and you're going to help them through it. And they're not, we've talked about it many times, and they're not going to be you, as a result is important, but you put them all in one story.
Now let me throw this. Everybody's seen Gotham but Gaslight, correct? The Batman animated movie from.
No, but you can spoil it. I don't care at this point. No, but you can go ahead and talk about it.
Well, okay, so there's a moment in there where like you see Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, and Tim Drake are all like street kids, and they're all together.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
It doesn't bother me there.
Okay.
Not for a moment. Right?
All right. Sure.
And I'm trying to figure out why. And it makes me go, and I think it's the fact that this is a TV show. This is a TV show where where the sense is that every episode is building on a grander arc. Mm-hmm. And right, because it makes me I don't think that the movie's gonna bother itself too much with Robins. Right? Like they're just there. It's an Easter egg there. Here I'm going, well, it's still the first season, but I thought you were gonna get to Robin at some point.
Right, me too. Yeah.
Right? And it made me go like for like the first time I watched it, like I was so offended by it. I was just like, wow, like you just threw all of them into this episode.
Yeah.
And I'll say, like, didn't really give quite a lot of respect to any of them.
Right.
Except one.
Except for Carrie, yeah.
But I will also say this, though, too. I mean, this is the show Where if it was any other Batman show, I think I would wonder, like, when are you going to get to Robin? What are you going to do? Like, what's, like, how's that going to be handled? This show, I'm kind of like, I'm happy if you never give me a Robin.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's what makes me think is that what we're getting here?
Right.
Like, do they have no intention to actually do anything with Robin? And this is just them to be like, here they are.
Yeah.
So you don't ask about
That's all you're going to get.
Right. Here they are.
But I mean, in a way,
we're not going to play with it anymore.
Well, in a way, I understand what you're saying, but in a way, it is also it's no pun intended. They're flipping you the bird and being like, you're never going to get Robin. Okay.
Right.
Which sucks, because I honestly think that sucks. I don't like that idea at all. I don't need Robin next season, but eventually I don't have an idea. I don't have a problem with Robin showing up.
Mm.
That's all. I just think that was my thought of like, well, then you're just shutting, like you said, they're just shutting down the debate before we can get there. Again, it would have been fine if we didn't already have like Lois and Waylon the Killer Croc and a great Ghost shout out and Leslie Tompkins in this episode too. And then 4 Robins. Again, as someone, I like that stuff in general, but it's a lot. And like I said, the bigger thing is I just don't like the idea of suddenly, like, basically, as you said, well, this is don't ask for Robin. You got Robins, as close as you're gonna get.
And I mean, I do think I don't know for sure. I don't know. I haven't read it in an interview. I haven't seen anything like that. But that's the feeling I get. Like Bruce Timm has pretty a well known, he's documented at this point being like, I don't really know why the Robin concept works as well as it does. Right. So it does make me kind of go like, is this just a way to sort of like to not get us thinking that like, oh, this is going to be a setup for Haley Circus, or oh, this is going to be a setup for Jason Todd stealing the Batmobile tires, or like any iteration of a Robin introduction. But it overshadows the story. That's all we've talked about. Is these orphans. We haven't talked about the fact that this is a new bad guy that's never been animated before. It's a take that's not really, well, no, she's been in Brave and the Bold, actually, in a more traditional way, right?
Maybe.
Didn't she?
Maybe.
And there's an episode where Batman turns into a vampire. I think that's Nocturne, right?
Okay, I think so, but it's been a while, so.
But anyway, like, what I will say, this setting is great.
Yeah.
Right? The setting is awesome. I mean, setting it all in this carnival, like I like seeing Batman in places that we don't typically see him in. Right. And that's one thing I think this show does beautifully. Like, all the set pieces are really great. And like in the last one, we're like in a neighborhood development. And it does like these really, really cool, like we're on a iceberg lounge ship. Like, I think it does the settings really great.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I do have more thoughts on overall setting. I like I said at the beginning of this part of the review, like I love carnival sets. I think they're great. They're great, interesting set pieces all around. You got to have Bruce Wayne get beat up by a bearded lady. Well, that's a nice bit. Yeah. Like, that was fun. For the villain herself, for Natalia, I think she's interesting. And I think it's a good choice. We've had a Ghost already. My only thing about that is it seems like a step back from when we had a Ghost, like an actual Ghost 2 episodes ago, to now she just has a quote unquote rare affliction.
Right.
And I was like, that's really understating. You're really underselling what's going on here, Anton.
Right.
Like, she's sensitive to the sun and has a rare affliction.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, it just seems like, we had a Ghost 2 episodes. You can say vampire. You can say what these people, even if it's not straight up vampire, you can say that these people would believe she's a vampire for sure.
Right.
That's the puzzling thing to me. Like, why they didn't just make her a vampire.
Straight up. Yeah.
Straight up. I mean, for a show that's not geared towards kids, I gotta think that you could do it.
Yeah.
And we know Bruce Timm loves vampires, right? Like any chance he gets. This is a thing that he wanted to do going back to the original Batman the Animated Series, and they just didn't, like, the censors didn't let him.
Yeah.
They were just like, at the time, they were like, no vampires, absolutely not. It's puzzling to me. It really is puzzling to me. But you know what I will say, and this took me on my third watch of this show. The stealing the spirit energy, you know what it is though?
Mm.
It's very hocus pocus.
Okay.
It's very hocus pocus, right? With the fact that it's all kids.
Yeah, like Halloween classic, Bette Midler, Hocus Pocus. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can see it. Yeah. I mean, it seems like it doesn't have to be kids in this, but it is. I think it's always, she's just collecting orphan souls for whatever reason.
Yes. Well, no one's going to miss him, Clifton. That's why.
That's true. Right. That's true.
That's why she does it.
Right.
You know.
Well, I mean, but there's a darkness to this.
Yeah.
Though. I mean,
for sure.
Like, I mean, abducting children. I mean, there's an addiction component to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know.
Yeah, her brother tries to cut her off, and she's not having it.
And it's just overshadowed by Easter eggs,
right?
You know,
I was going to go back to just say like the voice work, because we mentioned it was McKenna Grace. I thought she was great.
She was,
and Haley Joel Osment, I thought was very good as well. And it's interesting because, you know, we cited what their resumes are, and it can be kind of stunt casting a little bit, and then it kind of is in everything now, where you get an actor from something else appearing in something, and it's interesting for me to see which ones have the chops for animated voice work, because not all do. Not all actors have that set of skills, and it is a set of skills, I think. And it doesn't come up a lot, but I mean, it's like not all actors can sing. Some can, some are great. Not all of them can. Not all can dance, some can. And I think people don't realize that voice acting is another skill set that doesn't necessarily go hand in hand with all acting. Not all actors have that skill set that carries over to, you know, good quality animation voiceover or voice acting. But I thought these two did. I thought McKenna Grace was great in this episode.
We also got a classic voice actors in this as well, as Julie Madison and the bearded lady,
right?
In Grey.
Was that Grey?
Yeah, she was in it.
Grey Delisle.
Grey Delisle. She's always great, but yeah, she was great. It was nice, nice to have her there. I guess they needed someone, and she's like, sure. So she did a couple voices, which is cool.
Right.
I will say, because I didn't get it in, the carnival feels very Nightmare Alley to me, though, too, which is, you know, classic noir from I think like 47.
Yeah.
The one that
or the remake with Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, exactly. So it felt very that. I couldn't shake that watching it. So you know, just because, you know, we actually didn't, you know, this is the first one where a 1940s movie like specifically like didn't come up for anything, which is interesting. But yes, okay. So we have one more scene for this 8th episode. So we're in the courthouse. The judge says he understands that the DA is ready to withdraw charges against Milligan. Dent says that isn't the case, and he's ready to proceed and would like the defendant held in custody until trial. Milligan is carried off, yelling at Dent that he'll pay for this. Thorne's hench from the carnival is in the courtroom, and outside in the hall, reporters ask Dent if he thinks he can pull ahead in these last 24 hours before the election. He says he does. Dent says it's still anybody's race. And then he goes to the restroom. He's followed by the hench, who throws acid, yelling, "Here's what happens to double crossers," and we fade to black as Harvey is screaming.
Mm.
So there we go. That's our setup.
It's happening.
And we will review the final 2 episodes in our next one. All right. If you want to suggest a topic, you can email us at info@letmeknowhowitis.com. We're also on Blue Sky. You can search for us using LMKHII. Those are our initials. Reminding you that you can find links and examples to everything we talk about on letmeknowhowitis.com, where you can check out all of our past episodes. Just please, however you may be listening, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review, and follow us on social media. And we will see you guys next time.